Hey everybody, I'm just doing a bit of a hobby chat today. This will be a little bit of a long one because I'm going to cover Muskets and Tomahawks, Drop Zone Commander, and a bit of 40K. And so what I'll just put up right now is just the minute that I'm actually going to be... I'm going to start with Muskets and Tomahawks first, and then I'll just put the time that the video starts with the other two, just in case you guys are interested in just one of them, or a couple of them. Just got a couple of projects going on right now. The main project right now is assembling and painting my Drop Zone command, just so I can play the game with some friends. But while I'm doing that, I'm just going to be taking on a couple of little projects just to do a couple little things in the other genre games that I'm playing. This is just something that I've been wanting to do for a while, and that's... I think I've showed this to some of you guys, but the reason why I got an extra set of French Marines is that they had sent some duplicate minis and some missing minis, and then one of the guys had just sort of some mutilation going on the face here primarily, but then also just a little bit on the chest and on the cuff. And so I'm just taking on a little bit of a project just to practice my sculpting skills a bit. And what I'm going to do is, even though you can see how half of his face is sort of there, I'm just going to take a Dremel and I'm just going to drill down and basically take this down to pretty far and just start a bit from scratch on his face and just practice sculpting a face. And so it should be interesting. I'll show you guys how it comes out. Can't promise that it's not going to be a bit goofy and googly. I've never done faces before, and I know, I think they're difficult to do heads and faces for sculpting, but I don't completely know because this will be the first time for me. So yeah, so I'll just do this French Marine and see if I can't bring him back to life and be able to use him on the table. All right. As far as Drop Zone Command, I've been mostly enjoying putting these models together. I'll show you what I've done successfully, and that's I wanted, because it's such a big part of the game is dropping in vehicles and things like that, I made all the bears up, and what I did, they're basically enclosed, like you make them, there are a few pieces and you just put them together. This piece I left so you can just pull it off. It's just sort of a gun, but basically what I've done is magnetize them, and I magnetize them with just magnets I had laying around. Like, I've seen some videos where people had some rectangular flat magnets, and the best that I could see, is they all came from the UK, that I could see UK companies, and the shipping was quite expensive. I mean, essentially I was looking at like $20 for magnets and then like another $20 for shipping, and that's just sort of getting the price of a kit. I kind of value having magnets for these games, but I really didn't want to get like a whole new set of magnets when I have some, even if they are harder to work with for this. I wanted to see if I can try to make it work. Now, with this one in particular, I think I'm looking through the camera here, but yeah, I think it works pretty well. And so that's good enough for me. I mean, like, if I shook it hard, they definitely would fall, but, for the purposes of this game, like, I think it's good. I am going to have to put this, like, clear crystal thing on when, where it's not a crystal, but it's just this little guy here. I'll likely put onto the miniature once I'm finished painting, and that'll just go up there, and there is room in there for that with this particular design. So it's funny, it's not, you have to glue it in for it to actually stay, but as you can see, it fits just fine. Yep, but it won't stay because it's basically just got a half circle there, so that's why it has to be glued in. So yeah, so these guys I think are coming out fine. I'm having a bit of trouble with the design where you have 3 vehicles. I actually have to do some green stuffing because I actually damaged part of this when trying to figure it out. I got like the little cars individually to pretty much fit fine, but getting it to be stable like onto this without actually having it physically go through here, like drilling a hole through, is actually quite difficult. And because the model shape is irregular on top, like I have a pretty strong magnet underneath there, but it's just not, flush on the top. And I'm trying to determine whether I'm going to disfigure the top by actually creating a flat surface like right there for it to attach to, or what. I'm not really sure at this point, because it's just like I can get this on here. I basically shaved down that crystal or that clear tube and glued it in here, and then shaved it down so it's flush. And so this is actually on here just fine in the middle. But then the only thing I have is I have some pretty strong magnets, but it's just, I thought this was going to work just fine. And it does actually have enough magnetism going through. It's just that it kind of, it should be going like right on there, but because of this corner, it's like trying to magnetize to an angle as opposed to a flat surface. And so I don't know. I think, if you can see, that's kind of like where it's at. I think I might just put a little green stuff on the top and just widen this a little bit for the middle one, just to allow it to, before painting it, just to allow it so this will attach well. The other guys do magnetize pretty well, and so it's not too bad. The middle one worked out fine as well too, but it's just this whole attaching it thing fiasco that made it difficult. So yeah, that's the drop zone. I mean, I know there's better ways to magnetize with these sleek flat magnets, but I'm just kind of working with what I've got here. See what I can do. I think I'll make it work. I think I just have to play around with it a bit. And in all fairness, I just really started playing with that kind of stuff today. So on to 40K. I picked this guy up this morning, actually, and many of you will recognize this as the Engine Seer #1, to be specific. I guess there's two different slight variations. Variation mainly seemed to be in the face, the way he was slightly tilting the axe, and like some of the details were just slightly different, but he's pretty much a very similar model. So I've talked about Mechanicum in the past, and I basically, for my Loyalist army, which are the Knights of Griffin, the fluff that I've created, which is inspired by 40K fluff, is that the Knights of Griffin, which were located they're now a spacefaring fleet because their homeworld was destroyed within the similar sector as Griffin 4, which was a Forge world, where coincidentally Legio Gryphonicus also was located. All along, ever since I really started this, for the most part, I've wanted to do a allied detachment of Mechanicum with the Knights of Griffin, and for it to be Legio Gryphonicus, and that it sort of naturally, as the Leviathan fleet came in the lore, which is in the lore, and destroyed that Griffin 4, destroyed the sector, you know, because it's huge, that as some escaped, they encountered each other and helped each other out, and then became allies. You know, allies through dealing with the same tragedy. Now, so I wanted to do the Mechanicum. There's a lot of cool things since then have happened. I mean, right alongside my wanting to do this, I mean, Forge World started making really, really cool Mechanicum pre-heresy stuff. And so, you know, there's Mechanicum and Mechanicus, and like, I'm not an expert on the overall fluff of the Mechanicum. I won't claim to be, but I know they were, I believe, Mechanicum, and then they became Mechanicus, and there was the division between, you know, the good guys and the bad guys, which are the Dark Mechanicus and the Adeptus Mechanicus. And so that's, you know, I understand some of this, but these are going to be the good guys, obviously, because they're allying with Space Marine, and it's Legio Gryphonicus. And so Legio Gryphonicus have a gray and yellow primary coloration. that actually threw me off a bit in the beginning, because I really want my Mechanicum to look really grim dark, because to me the Mechanicum epitomize that grim dark visual within 40K. The whole idea of humans altering themselves to become machinery has that real grimdark feel, that choice of, you know, self-change, you know, getting rid of the self and, you know, pairing yourself to machinery, becoming cyborgs essentially. It's really has that grimdark feel to me. And so I didn't want like a really brightly colored model that I was going to be dealing with. I wasn't sure how I was going to make that work. This is actually going to be a test model. I picked this up because I don't have any Mechanicum models at all at this point, and although I'm going to be painting my Space Marine models first, as far as overall, like I'm going to be doing this guy right now, but I'm going to do this guy as a test model, and there's a lot going on. I mean, for those of you that are listening to the rumors, and there's some really strong rumors that in April, May, and they're saying April, there's going to be a large, or depending on what you read, there's going to be either, you know, a pretty large Mechanicus release for 40K, where there's supposedly going to be a Codex Skitarii, a Codex Cult Mechanicus, followed potentially by an actual fuller Codex, you know, of Mechanicus. I don't know, but what most people are saying, what most of the rumors are saying, I should say, are pointing towards a Skitarii code, a specific codex with the release of Skitarii and some other models. They're talking about some big kits too. So I'm definitely holding off on buying Forge World models, although I can pretty much definitely say I'm going to be getting some of the Forge World models for this, and I'll likely do enough eventually to field a Mechanicum force even without the Space Marines, like with the Majos. But in the beginning, I'm definitely going to be looking at tying them together. The one of the reasons why I really want to hold off, though, is I really like the Thralls, that as sort of a kind of entry-level troop choice that Forge World has. But I don't want to really commit to anything until I see what these Skitarii look like, because as much as, like, right now the Forge World army, if you it's in a lot of ways it's very elite in my mind. I mean, you have these what they call Castellax, you have Thalax, you have a couple of other different kinds of automations, or automatons I think they're called, and they're very, very cool apparently in game. They look really cool, they're large, they're kind of elite-ish. I've read Mechanicum, you know, the book, and from my limited experience, you know, when I think of Mechanicum, I think of Knights and Titans initially, and then I think of like these tech priests, kind of like this guy, and just swarms of these Skitarii, like at the feet of Titans, you know, battling it out on Mars. You know, that's kind of what I think of. I don't think of all the weird and wonderful extra bots that you see, you know, occasionally. And so I'm kind of just sitting back. I've got a lot of other painting to do, but my mind's definitely into this. I've been watching videos specifically on the Mechanicum and the Mechanicus more than anything as far as for 40K lately. And I'm kind of holding out. And so I thought, while potentially waiting a month or two just to see whether this rumor is true, because for those of you that watch some of these rumors and stuff, I mean, when they start coming out with ordering codes, like when people start showing how, like, oh, this ordering code came up, then it's kind of like, oh wow, like that looks like it is going to happen, I think, in most cases. You guys can tell me, you know, disagree with me on that, but just from my limited experience, when I've occasionally followed them, I usually don't, unless it interests me. Once the ordering codes start coming out and they start showing stuff, like I remember the last time I was this interested in a rumor was when the Eldar Codex was coming out. And so it's been a while. But I remember when the ordering codes came out, and it was actually pretty close, I mean, to what actually did come out when they got to that point. And so that's the kind of where it's at now, you know, with these rumors, I think. And so I'm pretty convinced that it's going to happen. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty convinced. And so when that does, I'll likely, be picking up a couple of, at least one, if not more, Skitarii kits. If that's the case, and it does happen with the codex and things. And then from there, I'll be supplementing and doing more with Forge World stuff for this. But in the meantime, with moving away from my ramble there, in the meantime, I'm going to paint this guy up. And so he's not a new model by any means, but I'm going to paint him up with Legio Gryphanicus colors. I was quite worried how I was going to do this and keep him grim dark until I saw a thread on Warseer where somebody did a Legio Gryphanicus Admech or Adeptus Mechanicus army, and he really nailed it with the grimdark. I mean, he definitely made the gray a bit darker, and there were some highlighting or weathering and things at times that made things brighter, but it was fairly a dark gray with all the metallics you typically will see, for all the metals. But then some yellow in spots too, and so for this guy, I've decided that I'm gonna do the hood in yellow, but then like the rest of the cloth will be dark gray. And so that's kind of how I'm going to interpret that color scheme. I might even make the hood with this piece here. I haven't thought about it. This top piece of cloth yellow, because it's almost like one piece. But yeah, it'll be interesting because I'll get to try out some. I'm going to be doing some chipping and some weathering. He's definitely going to be very gritty style. Kind of like my Marines as well, which are very similar. But yeah, that's kind of what's up next. And so, hope you guys are having a good week, and I will talk to you later.